I'm Yanick Paquette, and you're listening to True North Country Comic Podcast.
Welcome to the True North Country Comics Podcast, dedicated to promote Canadian comic book and graphic novel creators and supporters. I'm John Swinimer. If you want to drop me a line, you can contact me at john@truenorthcountrycomics.com. On this episode, I chat with Yanick Paquette about the 2022 Montreal Comic Arts Festival, also known as MCAF. This podcast is available on Apple Podcasts and Google Podcasts. It's also available on the True North Country Comics channel on YouTube. I invite you to like and subscribe. Based in Montreal, Yanick is an Eisner-nominated Schuster Awards winner and #1 New York Times best-selling comics artist. He began his career as a comic book illustrator in the United States in 1994. He worked for Topps, Marvel, and DC Comics, illustrating titles including Wonder Woman, Superman, Batman, Avengers, JLA, X-Men, Wolverine Weapon X, Terra Obscura, Seven Soldiers, and Swamp Thing. He collaborates with the biggest writers of the medium, including Alan Moore, Scott Snyder, Jason Aaron, and Grant Morrison, with whom he drew Wonder Woman Earth 1. His most recent project is illustrating a new Incal graphic novel for Humanoid Associé. While at MCAF, Yanick will be joined by Marguerite Sauvage and Junie Ba as a panelist for Travailler dans l'univers du comics, held on Sunday, May 29th at 1 p.m. And so, without further ado, here's my chat with Yanick Paquette about the 2022 Montreal Comic Arts Festival. So, Yanick Paquette, thank you very much for taking time to chat with me.
Hey, it's a pleasure, man.
Appreciate your time. What I usually do to start off the interview is ask the creator about their first comic book. So I'm wondering if you remember, what was the first comic book that you read?
Yeah, well, comics, it's different. I'm French-Canadian, so I would say that my first few graphic novel type thing I've been exposed to were European comics. So, but I can't remember exactly which one was the first, but probably something like Tintin or Asterix, that type of stuff. Right. But my first American comics, I do remember much better because I did find it in a garbage can. It was a issue of, in Quebec, we had traduction in French of Marvel and DC, but I guess to save on cost, they were in black and white, even though the original art, it was X-Men, something like a John Byrne issue where they're trapped in a circus, I think. Was it Mesmero messing with people? Could be. Just before the Dark Phoenix saga. So that particular book, and it had no cover, and it was dirty and disgusting, but in black and white and impressive. And that would be my official first comic.
Great. Good. So good stuff to inspire you growing up, but I'm wondering who or what inspires you to create today?
Making a living, I guess. But in terms of, I'm from a generation that is, there is a younger generation now that represents something much more impulsive and energetic. And I feel like my work is very controlled, and I'm from that period of artists like J.G. Jones or G.H. William, and very, very precise inking and very controlled. And I'm looking at guys like Matteo Scalera or Rafael Albuquerque, and I see these guys just going to town on those pages and being so free. And Dan Panosian, this is crazy inking, and I'm looking at that and I'm like, I wish I could access this kind of crazy freedom, and maybe I will. I mean, I'm trying very hard to be less of a stickler and try to be more impulsive with my thing. But yeah, I would say that these are the kind of people I'm looking at today. It doesn't look too much as an influence in my work, but I aspire to be them somehow.
Sure. Okay. No, that makes sense. That makes sense for sure. So you're busy. I mean, gosh, I look at your schedule and so many things are coming across with cover art, like every which way but loose. But one of the things maybe we could talk a wee bit is about your latest project, the Sandman Universe Nightmare Country. I wonder if we could talk a wee bit about that, maybe some of the artwork you're talking about doing on that, maybe what inspired you to work on it.
Yeah, well, first I'm a big fan of the Sandman universe in general, and I've done a run of covers for The Dreaming a few years ago, 2 years maybe. That's so much fun. I mean, I'm such a huge fan, and it's you got to draw something else and people in spandex shooting laser out of their eyes, and there's something magical and strange, and it's a dream. So for sure, and plus Chris Conroy, the editor of that series, is a good friend, and it was obvious that at the moment he needed me on anything, I would jump on board. And I did, The Dreaming, and then The Dreaming did like a next season, like a second season, and I did the cover for that, and then I was waiting for another opportunity. And as it turned out, I've been looking forward to work with James at any cost. And honestly, when Chris came with that project, I had just no time to put it in there and the schedule. I mean, my schedule was so booked, but I just couldn't resist. I've pushed stuff around. I just stopped sleeping for a week, and I've managed to do all those pages in a week. So in the cover, and that was it. So it's just a brief, exciting, but I had so much fun. I mean, I wish I could do more of that.
Sure. I want to switch gears a wee bit. You mentioned artwork and some of the artists that inspire you. I wonder if you could talk a wee bit about the tools you use to create your art.
Yeah, well, I've made the switch to digital years and years ago. The last book I've actually penciled was part of Batman Inc. #1, so you need to use the internet to know when that is. But it's been a while, and but even then, I mean, I was penciling and I couldn't trust the final on a Cintiq tablet, with Photoshop at the time. But I would get Michel Lacombe, which was at the time my studio mate, to ink them, because I just couldn't trust like a computer generated drawing. What is this? I mean, it's going to look weird on paper. So I still use an inker. By the end of that series, I mean, we were so late. I was working with Grant Morrison, and Grant was asking these very complex things to be drawn, and that was in a monthly and a very little lead. And at the end, there were just no time to get the stuff inked anymore. So I started to send in my, pencil, not really pencil, because they were like perfect black and white pixel based artwork, and they just went away, and Nathan colored them, and they went to print. And when I saw the book, I mean, I barely could see the difference between which was inked and which wasn't ink. I mean, which was with just my pencils. And the next project after that was Swamp Thing, and I figured, well, if there is a moment to venture into pure not inking anymore, and if the stuff is a bit grungy and unfinished and uncontrolled, I can always pretend that was an artistic decision, because it's Swamp Thing, and I wanted that, from the start. And as it turned out, I did okay with the Swamp Thing, and it looked fine on printed format. So since then, I've never really looked back, and I'm not penciling anymore and inking as a two-step type thing. I'm just doing a very rough layout on the Cintiq and then straight to whatever ink. And if things don't go well, I can always go back in there with a lot of white. Thing that is a bit, you can do it on paper, but after a while, if you redraw an eye 7 times on paper, it's going to just make like a little crossed month of whiteout, and then it won't work anymore. But on a computer, because I'm a bit of a control freak, you can do that infinite amount of time, and it's always printable.
Right. Now, you mentioned your collaborator or former collaborator, Nathan Fairburn. I was chatting with him recently, and he's entered the world of middle grade graphic novels.
Yeah, it's pretty too, man. It's beautiful stuff.
So I'm wondering, here's a question. Do you have any plans to get your feet wet entering into that market as well?
It's not my natural inclination. I mean, I don't see myself doing it. Maybe one day. If anything, I'm much more inclined to sci-fi and horror. I mean, if I depart from the superhero genre, is going to be even more mature, if something. So we're on 2 different track, but we still gather together for projects here and there. So.
That's good. And now that the COVID seems to be lifting and restrictions a bit, do you have any plans to attend any conventions or festivals for the rest of the year?
Well, actually, I've done Vancouver early on this year. I'm doing what am I doing? I'm doing Orlando, which is kind of crazy because Florida just lifted. Well, they were pretty flexible with the COVID rules, but now they're like, no, it's illegal to do COVID rules at all. So I'm like, all right, yeah. So, but anyway, it's on the schedule. I'm doing Dallas, and I'm doing a few of those Fan Expo has now shows all over North America.
Sure.
And maybe some overseas also. So slowly going back into the track. I mean, as I discovered, well, in 2019, I had this huge year of a lot of convention. I was doing Wonder Woman Earth 1, the last volume, and I was working so hard. And I was like, oh, this convention circus is exhausting. I can't do it anymore. I don't want to do it. And that's it. I'm taking a long break, and then COVID happened. So I sort of did that break, not on my own accord, but it happened. But after a while, I discovered that there's something nice in meeting people and having some sort of feedback, because working is fun. The internet, people are happy, but it's not the same as meeting people and having some sort of just a feedback of what you're spending so much hours doing makes people happy.
Sure.
And it's not like in a total void and some troll over the internet, like, bitching about things. And the likes, it's so abstract when you post a picture. So at these conventions, not only I can meet the fans, but also it's a way to talk with friends and colleagues, because we all works in different city and sometimes different countries, and I miss them. Convention are those moments where we can gather.
Thanks to Yanick for the chat. You can discover more about Yanick on Twitter and Instagram at Yanick Paquette and online at yannickpaquetteblog.wordpress.com. And thanks to you for listening to the True North Country Comics podcast. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe to and like this podcast on Apple Podcasts. And please leave a good rating. Also check out the TrueNorthCountryComics.com website and follow along on Twitter at True North Comics. True North Country Comics is now on YouTube. Please like and subscribe to that video channel. Please send your feedback to John at TrueNorthCountryComics.com. Thanks again for listening, and come back soon for another episode. Bye for now. True North Country Comics podcast is copyright True North Country Comics, copyright 2022.